Hello, this is an assessment of a Bechstein Model 5 that's just come into stock, and we're trying to decide what to do with it. Now, it's got pretty good ivory keys, which is good. There's a little chip in that one, but I think we can disguise that enough to not really mind. But there are some lines here. They haven't come off and been stuck back on. I just think it's been quite worn, actually. Just beginning to wear thin, so we may think of replacing them, even though they're not in bad condition. Our piano is made in 1902, and the casework does need repolishing, though there's no veneer missing. I see the top of the piano here, see where the fade line's been made by the lid being this is kind of how people have their lid normally, so when you put that back down you can see a fade line appearing where it's faded and the lid's been back. So this does need repolishing. It's not not a very interesting veneer. That's one thing we have to decide on. Though it's not bad. It's 1902, but it hasn't got some older Bechsteins have got tremendous rosewood veneer. This Bluther, for instance, that we have in stock, in 1925, a later piano, and strangely enough, this veneer is usually associated with earlier pianos, so it's quite a find because this is also a roller action Blutner. Now, when the veneer is not incredibly interesting, very often we redo the piano in black. That's because there's a demand for black Bechstein grands. Now, we're always looking for Bechsteins that we don't need to fully restore. It'll obviously make them a lot cheaper. So testing the tuning pins is one thing we want to do. Also listening to the general tone. And this has a nice even general tone, but as it comes up here, it's very, very weak. And that's because the hammers are very flat. Compare that to this Blutner, and you can hear the difference. You see it's played at the same, but it's just however hard you hit it, it's still very podgy. Now, looking at these hammers, you can see how flat they are. That means too much hammer sitting the string. Doesn't bring the harmonics out, it's too soft. And that was the area that we played with C sharp and D. And really they're very podgy, very soft, and far too much area hitting the string. Also, the regulation is very bad on them, so that's not actually going to be noticed too much in the fingers, but you can see it visually. Now, this is another thing which we often change. That seems to have been changed at some stage, as do the hammers. However, the hinges here are also loose, just through a lot of playing, really. We would change hammers, shanks and rollers, as you'll have seen in other videos. It's looking quite likely that we'll have to redo this whole piano because there's too much reconditioning to do. These tuning pins are not unbelievably tight. We changed the rest plank here when we fully restore a piano. One or two strings have been previously replaced. That not that long ago, I wouldn't have thought. And the one at the top there. This one here has been replaced quite a while ago. As you can see, the beckets are actually sticking out because that gives it away. But also, by the way, strings on a lot of grands, and Bechsteins included, go down and back up. So following this string at the top here, the one that's been replaced, you can see it goes down and then round and back up again down the other side. So it's the same string. If the string breaks at this point, you can wind it down to get enough string to pull round the hitch pin there, back up and onto the other one, rather than replacing the whole string. That'll mean you haven't got a new string to bed in and to stretch, so that's better unless you're redoing the whole piano. There's the Model 5, by the way. V as an old Model 5, so that's actually the shortest Bechsteins, 2 meters, the shortest that they did at that age of Bechstein. So there's the 5, the shortest one, the 4 is the next shortest, 3, 2 and 1 is the longest. Now, if we do redo the whole piano, we very often redo the tied action, as I'll just show you the one that's been redone next door. So here's the one that's been redone in black, and you can see that ordinary capstans that most grands have. So Bechstein often have what we call tied action. It's easier to work on if it just has the capstan, and really the touch isn't effective if it's done properly. See, on this fully restored one, it's got a new rest plank here. Obviously everything else is new as well. So going back to the Bechstein that we're trying to make a decision on, the soundboard is quite good. There's some good features on it. So it's a shame to have to redo the whole piano. I expect if you're listening to me, you're thinking, oh, don't redo it in black. But the thing is, there are quite a lot of Bechsteins of this set. Well, not quite a lot, but enough for us to to meet the demand for a really, really nice rosewood case. And as I say, the rosewood on this one is quite plain. There's the side to the piano. When I say quite plain, it does repolish really beautifully if we do it. But if we choose one to repolish, we usually choose one with a bit more figuring on it. Now, here's a Steinway we're working on for a client. It has a lot more figuring. It's the underside of the top, which again is quite figured. Here's the Steinway upright. This is the underside of it. Sorry, the bottom panel. Again, it's a client's piano. Here's the fall, the top of the fall, which is particularly figured. We use about 30 coats of French polish and then finish off with antique wax so you can really see the grain that brings the grain out as much as possible. So the assessment to decide on what to do with the piano that's coming to stock, a Bechstein Model 5, 2 meters long, 1902. That's the changeover year, by the way, from the 5 to the B. So you'll find both there. You also find one called a 5A. It's quite a common year for Bechsteins in the UK. Not that there's enough of them because they're beautiful pianos. And now the underlying tone is good. Around here, very, very weak hammers, but the soundboard's very, very good. And it will restore beautifully. So I think a full restoration project here. Just not enough things right to sell it like it is. Thank you very much for listening.